Travis.
Is this the Danny Todd show?
Oh, yes, it is.
This is Sal Rosenberg. Do you remember the Jerky Boys?
Oh, man.
You might be too young.
I'm 29, so is that a yes?
I don't know. Let's see. It was like, what year were you born?
1992.
It might be close. You might have been like 4 years old when the Jerky Boys were around. That's all right.
Yeah. I'll ask my dad.
Yeah, your dad definitely knows the Jerky Boys.
After this, I'll make sure to be like, hey, Jerky Boys, you know what's up with that?
You guys will have an amazing bonding experience over the Jerky Boys.
Okay, all right. I'm going to write that down. Dude, welcome. How's it going?
It's going good. I'm just post bedtime with the kids, so I'm a free man.
That's awesome. How do you usually spend it when you're not podcasting? Like when you have a second away, of course, I know you love your family very much and your kids, your wife, but when you have like a second to kind of like decompress, like movies, TV shows, reading, like what are you doing?
I draw on my iPad. I have this like Procreate thing, and I'm really interested right now in animation.
Oh.
So I just draw stuff. Like I'm into art, and I do screen printing and some music stuff. But usually at the end of the day, I just want to sit on the couch and just draw skulls or try to animate like some odd character. That's usually what I do. Yeah.
So that's on the iPad. They have crazy. I haven't had an iPad since I think like the second generation. So like the stuff now is getting way too crazy. So I'm like way behind on like the capabilities.
It's amazing. So it's like layer based, and then you can import all these different pens. So like I have an Apple Pencil, and then I can draw like they have all these different pen styles. So you can do like markers, graffiti, halftones. It's like well worth the money.
Damn. So can you, as far as like, how do I say this? I've over my years of doing graphic design and whatnot, like I've been on the hunt of getting those cool brushes and stuff like that. But sometimes you have to find the ones that either are not going to break the bank or like copyright stuff. Like, can you use those freely and openly and like sell stuff with it or?
Yes. So there's a company called Retro Supply that I love. They make all the best Procreate brushes. And yeah, it's like you license it and then you can do whatever you want with it.
Huh. Because I've been wanting to get one of the newer iPads so I can kind of like broaden my podcast, especially like if I want to do, well, I have to download it and get into it, but Clubhouse or that new Spotify green room that I want to try. But
yeah, you're not on either of those yet?
I have the green room. And my buddy did send me an invite to Clubhouse, but this was like a month before I moved. So like I had nothing really set up. So I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, the social audio stuff is interesting, just from a standpoint of like being able to communicate in real time with other people on a quote stage, and then there's like an audience sort of watching. But what I've found is that it's sort of a time suck. Like you just go on there and it's like, it's not really recorded. You can record it, but
okay, so you can. Okay.
Well, Green Room, I think automatically somehow gets posted as something.
Well, one thing that drove me to the Spotify Green Room was that they email you the MP3 file or whatever after, so you can publish it as a podcast episode. So that drew me to it. But
yeah, so if you wanted to do something like interesting or like Q&A or, get people involved, yes. And I have downloaded the audio. Unfortunately, it's like a really compressed MP3, so it doesn't sound awesome, but it is a really cool, like new, opportunity, I think, for people, because you're a podcaster, I'm a podcaster, you talk like to no one, you just like you just talk into a black hole, and then sometimes some people say, hey, I liked that episode, and that's pretty much all the feedback you get. So when you can have somebody interact with you, it's really fun. But I'll be curious in a month into you using Clubhouse what you think of it, because I have my opinions and I don't want to I don't want to do any spoiler alerts for you.
I just feel like when it came out, I don't know how long it came out, maybe you know, I'm not quite sure, but it's very recent. But I feel like there's a huge fall off. Like right off the bat, like I saw it was everywhere. Everyone was talking about it. Now I haven't heard about it since I brought it up just now.
That's because the way they rolled it out was brilliant. It was invite only.
Yeah.
So you had to get an invitation, and they didn't give people a lot of invitations. You had to participate in order to get those invites. So the invites, people were selling them. It was like, It was hot shit, you know? And then they opened it up to the rest of the world, and they put it on Android, and that's when it was like, all right, this isn't cool anymore. It's not kind of like red roped off. It's not, as I think FOMO drives a lot of decisions with people. And when you can't get on something, you want it so hard. You just I gotta get on this thing. Yeah. So I think that's what happened. I really do.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if I try anything first, I'm going to go with the Spotify Green Room. I'm not quite sure. I think I might I don't know. Spotify sounds more appealing to me than Clubhouse, but who knows? Hopefully my Clubhouse invitation hasn't worn out. It probably has because it's been like 4 months, but I don't know.
I got a bunch. I'll give you as many invites as you want.
Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe next time you do a Clubhouse thing, I'll jump in and watch it or listen and contribute and see what it's about. Because I mean, like, I just moved and I'm still, pimping out for lack of a better word, pimping out my office, podcast studio. So it's a little even echoey in here. So I got to figure that out. But, I need a new monitor, new computer eventually, like so many things. I mean, more carpet, like so many things to buy. It's like, goodness.
Yeah, that's the fun part though, is shopping online and just like putting things in carts and walking away. Here's a pro tip for you. Don't ever buy anything. Just put it in a cart and then don't buy it. And they will send you an email tomorrow that says, hey, we noticed that you left this in your cart. Here's 20% off. And you're like, exactly. Well, where was that when I was putting it in my cart, guy?
Right? Oh, yeah. I definitely do that mainly because, well, going back to, I just moved, new job, buying things as fast as, spending money as fast as my money comes in on carpets, stuff for the actual house that, we need to use, but also carpet. I mean, I bought a plant. I've never bought a plant my entire life. And now I bought a plant. I was like, this would look really good in the podcast studio, especially when I start filming.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to have a good plant. I mean, plants are, I got a couple plants. My wife is like super into plants. She has one still in our house that she had when she was 19 years old in college. Like it's still alive. And
she got the green thumb.
Wow. Yeah, she has the green thumb. She's definitely a plant person.
Well, we're going to find out real soon if I am a plant person. I asked my girlfriend earlier, I was like, when do I need to water this thing? I'm like, I have no idea.
Regularly.
Yeah. I'm like, well, the thing is we have some like succulents and stuff that you don't really need to water a lot. So I'm trying to figure out it's near a window. Do I water it? Like, I don't know. I'll have to ask someone, maybe her mom. I don't know. But
there you go. Yeah. I would just keep putting water on it until it drowns.
Or yeah. Yeah. I'd rather kill the plant with overwatering than not watering it all.
Yeah. Would you rather drown or I guess die of thirst? That's the real question.
Okay. Oh, all right. So, well, going off of like I'm buying stuff for my studio office. A lot of the things that I'm about to, they're in my carts, plural, is, soundproofing stuff, panels and eventually, some ceiling panels and, the foam cubes and sound traps. Yeah. And for you, I listened to your podcast. Actually yesterday I was listening to, a few, cause I was having you on and I wanted to, come correct, and it sounds great, You can tell, I don't know what you really do for processing. I don't think editing, post-production, like nothing crazy. It sounds great, full, crisp, sounds good in all headphones. What's your kind of like surrounding in wherever you record?
Yeah, so I'm in an office in my house that was actually, the house I bought had a 3-car garage, but not 3 side by side, like a double long one. Mm-hmm. And then a regular one. And what they did was they realized, this is stupid. Why do we have another extra garage space for no car? And they turned it into an office. So It's literally just, I don't know. I think probably like 15 by 15 feet. There's carpet on the ground. I'm running this 7B into the Rodecaster Pro. And then the only thing I really do on the back end, if there's like noise, is the Waves NS1 plugin is amazing. It's $29.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep talking because I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, NS1. So basically it's one slider, it's one fader, and you just basically, it goes from 0 to 10 and it reduces noise. Okay. So you want to use it like salt. You want to use it sparingly. You don't want to overdo it because it does affect the audio signal, because basically what it's doing is it's reducing a bunch of frequencies, but works like magic. So I got a big ass air conditioner outside of this window here. And so during the summer, it's just like, it's always on. So it's kind of rattles a little bit. And so I don't really get too, I don't get too heady about that. Like if there's a little bit of background noise, I feel like the message is worth, having maybe a little bit of background noise, but I'll just throw that NS1 on there and bam, it is just, it's gone. It just disappears. Yeah. You'll love it.
Yeah. Cause I don't think I do a lot. I would look at, I have Audition. That's what I use. And I don't put a whole lot in there. I would click on what I would use, but I'm always so afraid that if I touch anything in Adobe while I'm recording, it's just going to shut down. But sometimes I do a little bit of denoise on like the lower end just to, nip anything. Well, since I'm in this new office and it's, it's pretty bouncy, it's pretty echoey.
Yeah.
I try to throw on a little bit of like the D reverb, but I can't do a lot because I notice it just starts to just muddle it and it sounds terrible. So
yeah, any of those plugins, it's like you really have to be gentle. I think all plugins really. You don't want to put like, unless you're going for some crazy effect, everything, compression, noise reduction, any of those things, just very lightly hit that audio because, none of us live in a recording studio, so it's like, okay. And I listen to a lot of podcasts. There's some pretty bad sounding podcasts. A little bit of room noise isn't hurting you. The panels, the carpet always helps just suck up. It's all it is a reflection. It's your voice hitting the wall, going back into the mic. So, that's the best part though. In my opinion, like I wish I could redo my room every month because it's so fun to like arrange things and put things up and
it is. Yeah.
Kind of once you get into the groove, it's just kind of like you just get, your desk just gets cluttered up with junk and then it's not as fun.
It is. Right now I have a San Jose Sharks hockey blanket right in front of me on two of my for photography, my studio flash, strobe lights just taped right in front of me. So hopefully it's nice. Absorbing some sort of reflection. Who knows? If not, whatever. I feel like I'm in a nice comfy space. But
you got a fort. You got a podcast fort.
Oh my God. Okay. When I start filming, we'll do another one. I'll get a ton of boxes, build a real fort, and then we'll go. It'll be sick.
There you go. I love it.
But going off of, it's fun, creating your space and you want to do it almost every month. And I've set my desk up in 5 different spaces already in the last month. It's insane, buying new prints and stuff. But I actually, and this will be a segue to what you sent me earlier on the phone, but I finally, after, 11 years, framed all my tour laminates from my career as a, touring photographer, videographer. And going off of what you said, it's what you said, have a great Warped Tour story. I was so excited. And I was looking at my wall, at my little frame thing, because I was on 3 Warped Tours. I was on Warped Tour 11, 12, and 13. And I was looking at this and I was I almost had a mini panic attack because I couldn't find my Warped Tour 13 laminate. Because I tried to make this frame kind of in order. And it's definitely, now that I'm looking at it, it's not.
But are you OCD?
I think once now, the fact that now I'm in a house where I can actually do things that I want to do and not have 2 brothers and, my mom and dad, no, why you do? No, you can't do that. or this, that, whatever. Like now I feel like there are certain things where I might have a little touch of the OCD.
Yeah. Your own space. Yeah. Cause it's your domain, which is awesome. But then it also sucks because you got to deal with all the bullshit, right? So like when the hot water heater goes out, your dad doesn't go in the basement. It's you.
Yep. Yep. That's all me. But going off of bringing that up, I just wanted to ask you about, I'm dying to, find out what this Warped Tour story is.
Yeah. So I don't know if most people know this, but like I used to be a touring musician, and music and podcasting, I'm big into podcasting now. So like music and podcasting, there's so many similarities. Like everybody has one. Everybody wants to grow it. Everyone wants to blow up. It just reminds me of bands where it's like you start a band and you're like, we want to get this huge audience and we want to blow up and get the record deal. And so, I really feel prepared to talk to podcasters, but I've been thinking a lot about the glory days, as they call them. But, a couple of the guys that were in my band, we've been just texting here and there, and everybody's old and crusty. And we were talking about how like a lot of our peers like made it. So like when we were coming up, back when I was in a band, like when I was like 15, there wasn't that many bands. It was sort of like you were a unicorn if you were in a band. And then there was this sort of shift where like everyone's in a band. Like my grandma's in a band, and then people are in 2 bands, and like it became something that wasn't as like, I don't want to say not special, but it was just not as like shocking. Like, wow, you're in a band. And so our peers, like growing up, were like, Plain White T's and Fall Out Boy and Alistair and Alkaline Trio and all these other bands that like all like at some point like really popped off. Like, we played a show with Fall Out Boy one Friday night for like 3 people at a VFW hall. And then like the next week it was like people were crawling in the windows to get there. It was like that fast for them. But it reminded me that, we played when we were like a local band. We played on the Ernie Ball Battle of the Band stage.
Yep. Okay.
I think it was the Battle of the Band stage. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we had done it before, and it was whatever. And then this one year, I think it was 2004. Basically what happened was we were on at like 2:00 or something. That was our little slot. So we had our little tent. I remember we were next to Paramore. This was before Paramore was like fucking huge.
Yeah.
And so we're hanging out and drinking and doing whatever. It's hot as balls in Chicago. And so we go and like we start to see like there's like a crowd forming, right? And we were like a local band that we could sell out like 100 cap. We could contribute to like a 1,500 cap, but we weren't like selling out anything. And like this crowd's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm like, what is going on? And so we end up playing and we play for like just an ungodly amount of people, like more people than I think we've ever played for. Just totally destroyed, rocked the house. We get off stage and we're like, what the fuck is going on here? I don't know if I can swear on your show. But
dude, yeah, go for it, please.
So we end up winning the Ernie Ball Battle of the Bands because they had a camera guy going around filming the stage when it was like going off. And they did this across the country. 4 bands won. I remember it was like My American Heart, us, there was 2 other bands.
I remember My American Heart. I love them. Wow.
Yeah. So sorry, they won. Oh no, it's all good. So we win the Battle of the Bands, and we're like fucking holding our heads pretty high. We're like, this is it. This is where it turns. So we get sent $30,000 worth of gear, like to my parents' house.
Holy
like
shit.
Guitar every day. A new thing showed up, like a guitar, an amp, a studio thing, an interface, sound. I mean, it was just ungodly. And we got flown out to LA. We played a show with Seosin at the Key Club with all the bands who won. Yeah. And I was like blackout drunk that night, hanging out with like the founder of Ernie Ball, like doing stuff you just shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
And so what I found out later was that on that stage, there was a switch that happened that day at 2:00, and Bowling for Soup was supposed to play at 2:00. and we played instead. And so all these people were lined up to see Bowling for Soup, not us, but it just is one of those serendipitous things that like kind of, got us in the door to some different things. Like, ended up touring with Warped Tour, getting songs on TV shows, getting a record deal, all these things, all because Bowling for Soup switched stages at the Chicago Warped Tour.
Dude.
So I just think it was funny because, we were good, but at that point we had no idea what was going on. And I feel bad because all the Bowling for Soup fans missed Bowling for Soup. So
whatever. It's Bowling for Soup.
Yeah, it was a good time, man.
I only know the one song. What is it? Is it Stacy's Mom?
Is that Stacy's? No, Stacy's mom is Stacy's mom is somebody else. That's the guy who wrote That Thing You Do. Bowling for Soup's like 1985 and
19.
Yeah, they got a ton of hits. They just like all they do is write hits. That's just like they don't write any other songs. They're like, here's a hit, here's a hit.
Okay.
Here's a hit.
So I'm definitely thinking of someone else then. Okay. But Bowling for Soup, I mean, I don't know. I don't, maybe I just didn't listen to them back when I was in high school that much. I don't
think anyone listens to them. I think it's like more like I think Bowling for Soup is more like the accessible punk band. It's like, it's like they're punk rockish, but like, I don't know.
4 or 5 steps down from like Good Charlotte cool.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just, I have no idea. That makes sense though. So
go ahead.
It
was a lot of fun, and it was it led us into a life of even further into the life of couch surfing, driving across the country, debauchery, drugs, alcohol, all the classic story, right?
Touring.
Yeah.
It is crazy. I mean, like I'm sure it was much different then. Because I mean, I graduated high school in 2010, and my very first tour. So I was on Warped Tour. Warped Tour 11 was my second tour, and my first tour was not that long before that. But like, even for me, looking back on it, and like especially maybe even the last like half of my tours, the vibe, I guess you could say, of touring has changed. Like, some of my hardcore partier friends are now like vegan and like barely, drink. And by the way, not ragging on being vegan or, not partaking in party favors or drinking or anything. It's just funny as like time goes on, like the more I go on tour, well, not anymore, but it was less of a party and it was more like, all right, let's work out. All right, cool. Let's rip a gig, have fun, come back to the bus, watch movies. All right, go to sleep.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Exactly.
I mean, that's getting older, of course, but it's just funny to like be at the beginning, freshly 18 years old, can't drink unless we go to Canada. To now it's like, okay, hey, I'm going to go FaceTime the wife and I'll see you guys in the morning, like, yeah, it's fun.
It's not a sustainable, like, I think like, I don't know, Keith Richards could sustain that, but like, I mean, Warped Tour is grueling, right? Like you're just out in the heat all day long. And if you're partying every day, I mean, like that'll get you. That'll definitely. And when you're a little band like we didn't have a bus.
Yeah.
So we had to drive 8 hours a night. We'd play, hang out all day, drive 8 hours a night to sleep at a Walmart parking lot and try to get somewhere good enough to get a good tent spot for the, all the loser bands, so it was definitely, there were times, I remember we were sitting in the van, like smoking a bowl because it was so hot. And we're just like, we just turned the air conditioning on.
Yeah.
And the dude from My Chemical Romance was standing outside of his bus. We were like parked right in front of their bus. He's wearing a bulletproof jacket and like full on like pants, long sleeves. And it's 1,000 degrees outside. And I'm like, how is this guy not just combusting right in front of our eyes? But the Warped Tour is like a whole different thing. And the touring vibe has changed. I mean, we used to tour when, I think the newest technology we had was like the T-Mobile. What was the one that the switch flip or what was it called?
Sidekick?
Sidekick. Yeah. That was that was like groundbreaking technology because we just got a Rand McNally map and we just drove around and looked at the map. There was no YouTube videos. You just like, you put on a CD and you drove for 8 hours. It was crazy. And when we look back at it, we're like, who let us do that? Like, we were driving through the desert and, you know, all this insane stuff in some shitty Astro van that shouldn't have ever made it coast to coast multiple times. God. You know, it's just like, you know, never having more than like $8 in your pocket for like, you know, 5 years. Just, but that lifestyle is like, I think it's something that gives you a little bit of grit. You know, it gives you like, you become industrious because you know, like, you can get by just like, you know, little hacks like, you know, hey, I'm going to save my money and get like one giant meal, or stealing waters from garages, or, you know, whatever it is that you're doing, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Damn. Yeah. I remember, I mean, I know I'm young, and our total, you know, our touring life was two different realms. They probably, you know, overlapped at some point in time or whatnot. But I mean, at the beginning, there was a point, you know, when cell phones, you had to pay a ton of money to go over into Canada, you know, text messaging, like to the point where you could look at your bill and look at all the text messages.
Oh, yeah.
And
like nothing was unlimited at that point.
Yeah. And I remember this was of Mice and Men, and we went into Canada, and I came back, and my parents called me. I was probably 18, I think. And they're like, hey, so where were you? I was like, oh, we just got back from Canada, like 2 or 3 days. Like, now we're back in the States. Like, what's up? Like, well, our AT&T bill, like you alone, I think it was maybe like $800.
Yeah.
Just in like text. I mean, I didn't call anyone really, but like texting. Yeah. I was like,
why would you call someone, Danny? Phones are not for calling.
It's okay. I will say it is incredible that I have a podcast. I can't public speaking, no thank you. I don't like talking on the phone. And sometimes when I talk to people in person, I just stumble over my words. It's incredible that I'm doing this. But I mean, I will say AT&T, I mean, I'm no longer with you. I'm with T-Mobile. But yeah, they did wipe all the charges because I'm just a stupid, 18-year-old kid that went to Canada and came back and didn't know what happened. So
nice,
good on
dude.
You. Yeah.
My favorite thing about Canada was the packs of cigarettes all have pictures of like disgusting lungs and stuff. That was like made such a big impact on me. I was like, oh yeah, this is a really interesting marketing angle. It's like, you can smoke, but here's somebody with black lungs, and you're just like, all right, screw it. Yeah, I don't have them yet.
it's a bit intense. I don't know if you mentioned it or not, but what did you do like in the band? Like,
so I was so we were a power trio because there was only 3 friends that knew how to play music at the time, so we never had the additional friend. And I played bass and sang. And the only reason I played bass is because the other friend I had was better at guitar than I was, so it was just kind of like bass by default. Okay. And so we grew up on like, you know, your typical like. Do you remember Case Logic? Case Logic was like a company that made cases for CDs and tapes.
It sounds familiar. I mean, I remember ripping CDs and stuff. So I mean, I've probably
So I grew up on like my dad's Case Logic like records and tapes. So like all the 80s shit, like Huey Lewis and the News and Hall and Oates and all these bands. And then I had, you know, then I got into punk rock, so like Minor Threat and like NoFX and like all that stuff, and the Police and like So we just because there was only 3 of us, we could practice a lot because we didn't have to like coordinate schedules, so we got really tight. And you know, we loved the Beatles and harmonies and stuff, and you know, we just like, there wasn't that many trios. It was like, you know, you really had to have 4 guys in your band to like be loud, but we were able to do that. So I played bass and sang, and you know, it just, I come from a very weird upbringing that I think like music was an escape. Like, you know, of course I found drugs and alcohol and all the other things to escape with, but like music became sort of that escape for me. And then of course at some point, if you do it right, you get a certain amount of attention, right? And then so you sort of get like, before there was the likes and the hearts and the saves, there was that dopamine drip of like, people like this, they're looking at me, so it was a perfect storm for someone like me. And you add a little alcohol in there and you got no fear, and then you're rocking. So I was just telling someone this story the other day. We took the Ernie Ball gear they sent us and we sold it all because we already had gear. We didn't need any. So one of my biggest regrets is I sold this beautiful, I remember the color, I could see it in my head. It was like this blue Ernie Ball bass. It had to be like a $2,500 bass. Ooh. We sold all of it to go record an album with this guy named Sean O'Keefe. And Sean O'Keefe, he basically had recorded Motion City Soundtrack.
Okay.
And then he did that Fall Out Boy, Take This to Your Grave record. And then he did Spittlefield's, I think it's like called Remember Right Now or something like that. And then we went in the studio to record a full length with him. So we like just took all the money and just spent it on that record so we could own our own record. And then like during that time, it was like, Fall Out Boy just exploded. Like, I remember being in the studio and like, the calls were coming in to Sean and like, because his lawyer wanted him to get points on this album because they were getting signed and it was good. I mean, like people were calling to buy publishing and it was getting crazy. Damn. So, it was an incredible experience. And then somehow we landed a record deal with, Mike Fellumley. He was the drummer of the Smoking Popes, and then he ended up in Alkaline Trio, and then he started a record label. And so we had this record ready, and he was like, I want to put this record out. So we're like, this is it. And then we did a bunch of shitty tours, forever until I think it just came down to like, we were all so broke and sick from touring. And then music changed completely. So
of course,
like it used to be like there was like your metal bands and they were like old dudes with goatees and like biker tattoos, and that was like metal. And then there was like rock and like pop punk, right? And so all of a sudden we called them the haircuts, but it was like all the hair in the face and the emo and and then people were playing like more like metalcore. And so we basically watched it change, and people, once that came out, people were like, well, we don't want this fucking Blink-182 shit. Like it became like, you became, a faux pas really. And you were playing with all these like super heavy bands. And then, so basically music completely changed. And that was when I was like, I think we're outdated. Like unless we're going to become a metal band, I don't really see us doing anything after this. And so we called it. And then, then it exploded. It was like metal came in, Of Mice and Men, all these, huge bands, which I love. And then it's still sort of morphing right now. Like,
oh yeah,
music's in this weird, it's like, it's getting heavier, but like, the dubstep came out and like,
trap.
And so now everyone's just like putting it all together. It's like everything is like, I was listening to the rock mix on Spotify, and it's like, I don't think there was really a rock song on there. It was all like, it was like rock mixed with metal, mixed with like hip hop.
Oh, okay. If you want to, sorry, just real quick. So I had my buddy is the manager, but I also had the guitarist of the band on my podcast maybe a few episodes ago. But I think their genre that they label it is hip hop hardcore.
Okay.
And they're called Fox Lake. It's just so, I don't know. You got to just check them out. I don't really know how to describe it because it's like, it's still weird, but literally like every single day I play it, especially when I go to the gym.
Yes.
It's really good. I don't know. It's really well put together. But yeah, it's changing. I mean, hip hop hardcore. I mean, Ice-T's in, Body Count. Like,
yeah,
what the heck?
Yeah, like, no, it's cool too. And I think a lot of people, I guess of my generation, like they all got frozen where they stopped looking for new music. And I think I was like a unicorn where I just like, I got into Of Mice and Men, and then I like Attack, and I'm listening to all this shit where it's just like, blah, 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 and my wife's like, what are you doing? I'm like, this is really cool. Like the way this is put together. And then, you know, just continuing to look for the new music. And, so I will definitely check out Fox. Like, I love it. I think it's like, that's what pushes music forward, is like, we keep combining things until we get new things and new ideas. Because really, I mean, you know this and I know this. There's only, what is there, 8 notes you can play on any instrument? Like,
oh, you're asking the wrong person. I mean, I know how to play a camera, but when it came to the tour world, don't know anything.
How many notes can a camera play?
A lot. I don't know.
Okay.
I should have studied for this.
But basically, like, it's all sort of like recycled, you know, like you can, like, there's only so many chord progressions and new things you can do. And then when somebody takes one thing, that, let's call it peanut butter, and then they take another thing and let's call it jelly, and they put it together and you're like, oh, that works. Like, why didn't I think of that? You know, so it's really exciting. I love it. And I can't wait to see what people do next. And you got to have heavy music at the gym. It's like,
of course.
And you're like Mr. Gym.
I'm a bit of a gym rat. I think like the last, half week was a little bit of a struggle because I mean, it's really smoky here in Idaho, and it's kind of just like making breathing kind of a pain in the ass. So by the way, if I'm talking fast or having to catch my breath, that's kind of why. Also, I get excited, but I absolutely love the gym. I mean, I grew up playing hockey, like very, very competitively. So I've always had like the competitive fitness kind of in my blood, I guess you could say. So working out is always just super fun. I used to, until I moved here, it would be like waking up at like 6:30 in in the morning, because I like to start my mornings uncomfortable. Nice. And then the rest of the day is kind of like, okay, cool. I just did a full workout before, 10 o'clock.
Most people are even awake.
Yeah. But now it's completely different. I work, I start work at, 8 o'clock. I have to wake up at, 6:30. I go to the gym after. So it's different, but I do love the gym.
Do you have anybody that you like in the bodybuilding world? I went through a huge, like, bodybuilding phase. My wife works for Optimum, or she works for Glanbia, and they own Optimum Nutrition and Isopure and all these brands. So I'm constantly hearing about the industry, or she goes to the Arnold and all these places. But like, I got like, so cool. I started following some of these guys. I'm curious, like, who do you admire?
Well, obviously Arnold.
Yeah.
The standard, the GOAT, as the youngins would say. But as far as like, cause I kind of look up to, there's a lot. I mean, I probably follow hundreds of, bodybuilders that I don't know their name, but I just see a post and I'm like, oh, cool. Maybe I'll try that. But
nice.
The 3 people that I think I follow the most, because I feel like at my full potential, like if I really push it and, maybe a year from now, I could be kind of where they are, especially because of like the way my body looks, my genetics, it feels kind of the same, is one, Steve Cook. Oh yeah. I mean, if no one knows who he is, I don't know. Under a rock, maybe, because no one does social media better than he does. I don't know. It's insane.
My wife's like hung out with that dude.
Yeah. Well, I think he used to be a athlete for.
He was. He was ON. Yeah.
So yeah, Steve Cook, another guy, Corey Gregory.
Okay.
Just an absolute monster. He used to own. I don't know what the split was, but I'll just say for the sake of talking, like a 50-50 split with Arnold on Muscle Farm. Oh, okay. Insane. I periodically dip in and out of his workout programs. Like he has an app, and it's insane. It's not for like the, faint of heart. It even makes me want to cry sometimes. And then I think my all-time favorite, rest in peace, Greg Plitt.
Greg Plitt.
I think he died like something like he was running next to a train. I don't know. Yeah, he on YouTube, his things that I usually frequent a lot is I think it's called like, let's see here. Yeah, Greg Plitt's MFT 28. He has a bunch of stuff for like all your, chest, shoulder, leg, yada, yada, yada workouts.
Nice. Well, having good genetics is awesome. I have the genetics of a small potato, probably from Idaho. And I'm just working against the grain here. I'm just like, okay, there's no muscle on anybody in my family. So I'm just constantly like, all right, how am I going to do this? So, well, that's awesome, man. Cause I see your posts and I'm like, dude, you're looking huge. I'm like, what are you eating? Like a lot.
That's my biggest battle. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, especially going from the world of touring, for, probably close to 11 years, then stopping and doing, a big boy job, going, 9 to 5 per se, and doing that, still doing the creative stuff, but your food habits change. Like that was completely different. Like I'm still trying to figure out what my body even likes and how things work for me. I'm 29. Mm-hmm. I don't know how carbs affect me yet. Like it's weird. Like I'm still trying to figure it all out. I mean, I'm trying to figure everything out. I don't know. Like I just learned how to hang doors.
Have you ever hired one of those online coaches before?
No, I think partially because there's a lot of other things. Well, especially with the podcast now, there's a lot of other things that I would like to put my money towards. Yes. And also I think like not pride, but it's like, I think I just want to figure it out for myself.
Okay.
I'm very stubborn.
I hired a guy once, and it's hilarious because I think it's pretty much all the same, but you were mentioning carbs, which made me think of this. And so he gave me like he gave me macros and calorie count, and I would literally like text this dude a picture of myself like front, side, back every week, and literally for I don't know 4 months every week he was just like, add 5 grams of carbs. That was it. That was it. It was just like add 5 grams of carbs. And so eventually I said, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to stop paying this guy. I'm just going to keep adding 5 grams of carbs to what I'm eating.
Carbs are not the enemy though. I'll say that.
No, carbohydrate.
Yeah.
Think about it. Carbohydrate. Yeah. I worry about all these keto people because I think that they're doing themselves a disservice by, yes, you probably lose a bunch of weight real fast, but like, I don't think that's a sustainable. I think that you really fuck yourself up.
I think. Another guy is Mark Bell. He, I think, was very into the keto stuff and ketosis and whatever all those crazy things are. Like, I feel like if you're gonna go for it, you got to be in like performance mode. Like, you got to be doing shit.
Yeah, you have to be. Yeah, you have to be like a. What do they call it? Those athletes that they just do like that's all they do.
Oh,
like, I run for 20 hours a day.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Damn. All right, let's flip this. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. That's the one problem with doing audio calls. Like I'll graduate eventually to doing video, but that is the one downfall I will say about doing just audio, because it's like as soon as I'm talking, what just happened now? It's like, what? So I apologize.
It's the podcast remix. It's like,
it is. I just need to get like a live DJ table when it happens. It's just like, you know what? Actually, I'll do it in post, whatever. I'm sure many people have listened to podcasts that you've been on. I don't know how many are out there. I was trying to find them. I did listen to the one with, was it Big Rob chewing the fat?
Yeah.
That's how I actually heard that you used to be in music, which is amazing. I have it written down here just so I was like, okay, don't forget that. So I feel like people kind of know, how you got into pod decks and stuff. And if they don't, I'm sure they can. I would love for them to go look at Big Rob's Chewing the Fat episode with you. It's a great episode. But I kind of want to ask some other things. Kind of more that I want to know. Well, obviously I want to help my own podcast and through that help people that are listening, because maybe they might be having the same issues. Well, issue is a little bit of a strong word, but okay. I will say, so I'm using Anchor.
Yep.
I've been seeing, well, you for one, you're using Sounder
FM. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm seeing a lot of people now, especially on the Facebook group, the Podcast Builder Club, that a lot of people are going to that.
Yeah, so Anchor is a really great place to start because they make it really easy for you to start a podcast, which is one of the things that I love about it, because so many people are afraid of, like, when you say, like, well, yeah, you need a microphone, you need an RSS feed. People are like, I don't know what that is. Like, it sounds technical.
Oh, that
really
scared the shit out of me.
Yeah. It's literally just like it's an address that if anyone subscribes to it, anything you put on that, they automatically download. It's like they should call it something else, like your podcast address or something. But so Anchor makes it easy and it's free. And because we're podcasters, it's like it's very similar to music. We're doing something, we're making something that people expect for free. People expect music for free.
Of course.
People expect podcasts for free. That's kind of the beauty of it. So somebody who's new is like, I don't want to invest whatever it is, $15 a month for something I'm not sure I want to do. So Anchor provides this really great, way to get your feet wet. But what happens is Anchor is not giving you any type of like, this is what I hear. I don't use Anchor and I haven't, but I hear a lot of people say like, I don't really see a lot of the download numbers or the statistics. I can't get any information because Anchor is owned by Spotify and it's a walled garden. They want people to, I think there was a point where you could only get Anchor podcasts on Spotify. I think you can get around that now, but.
Oh yeah. I think I'm on like, I don't know, maybe at least like 9 platforms.
And by the way, I got to tell you, man, like your podcast art is my favorite podcast art. Like anytime I see something where I'm like, man, I wish I did that, I know it's great. So just want to mention that.
Well, damn, you know what I might have to do for this? Because I need to make artwork for this episode to post. If I still have time in the night after this, which I should. I think I'm like 2 hours behind you. I might try and whip something up.
Nice. Well, but very talented. Very talented. And if you're listening right now to this podcast, do me a favor, just pause it for a second and go like whatever app you're on, and just go give a 5-star review and actually like write something in. Danny's putting out this content for you. He's reaching out to people, doing all this, and the least you could do for him is just leave him a review, because when other people find it, they're going to be like, oh, is this a good show or a bad show? There's going to be all these awesome reviews because it's an awesome show. So back to Anchor.
By the way,
this
much
podcast is brought to you by Anchor.
Yeah, right. Oh, man. Man.
Yeah, so the other thing that bothers me about Anchor is in the terms and conditions, which no one reads the terms and conditions. No one's a lawyer. No one has time. They basically say, like, we can use your likeness, your audio for anything we want. And what they're doing is, like, basically hedging their bets that, like, one of these podcasts is going to blow up, and we can use that to say they're on Anchor, right? But from my DIY punk rock mindset, I'm like, no, you can't use my likeness without my permission. That's like the corporate, the corporate monster. Like, no, we're against that. So a lot of people ask me what I use. And the reason I use Sounder FM is because I've talked to the founders. They come from Spotify and Google, and they just put together a really great interface. There's a lot of tools in there, and they're not trying to create a walled garden. They're very like community based. And so they have a free plan, and then they have like, I think the unlimited thing is like $12 a month. It's ridiculous. Like less than Chipotle, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
A month. Like, so just don't go get Chipotle once a month and like you've got it. So, but again, I don't like most podcast hosts just do the same thing. You upload your audio to it and it distributes it out to all the places. So if you're out there thinking like, what do I do? For the most part, they're all the same thing.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking about changing hosts, I actually did a post about how to switch hosts on my Instagram account.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And it walks you through the I think it's 4 steps. It sounds scary. It's like you have to set up a 301 redirect. It's like, whoa, that sounds like I need to hire an IT guy to do it.
Yeah.
But really you're just pointing your RSS feed to a new server that holds your audio.
You have to check it out, because I've heard you talk about it, and a lot of people on that Facebook group. I was like, you know what? I'll look into it. I haven't really I've just been like through the week, at work, like listening to podcasts of yours and, trying to just write down some notes, key points that I kind of want to touch on, or anything I like think of in the moment where I'm like, okay, if I don't write it down, I'm going to lose it.
It doesn't exist. Yeah.
Exactly. So that was one. So I'll check that out. One thing that I did do, and I think I created it yesterday, and I heard you talk about it. It might have been it was, I think, an episode where you did like multiple things that you use. And it was I just did the free account for now, but Pod Page.
Oh yeah.
I love it. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's another one of those things I wish I invented. So everybody who starts a podcast, like you have your podcast and it's on podcast apps. Mm-hmm. But in the real world, people aren't just sitting around like searching podcast apps for new stuff. You really have to have like a web presence. But then you get into the weeds and you're like, oh God, now I have to build a website. So this guy, Brendan, total genius, he basically created this service where you can just take your RSS feed. Remember, it's just your podcast address, not crazy. And you pop it into his website and it builds you a website. You can still augment it, but it pretty much builds you a pretty kick-ass website.
Oh yeah.
Using your art, your description, all the things that you've already put into your podcast host, like information. It puts the episodes it saves you, like you could literally build a website in, I would be willing to guess like 15 seconds.
Because I was waiting for you to get a little pause in there. I created my pod page on my break at work.
Yeah.
On my phone, no computer, just on my phone, created it, everything. Like so easy. Eventually I will, spring for the pro account or whatever. Cause just more options, cool stuff.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Amazing. I will say anyone listening that doesn't have a pod page, definitely just do it. It makes no sense not
it's a
to have
no-brainer.
it.
That was a no-brainer. Yeah. So, in theory, you could have a free Sounder account and a free pod page, and you're spending $0 to be able to broadcast your voice, your stories, your message, your interviews to basically the entire globe. Probably further than that. I'm sure satellites somehow pick up podcasts, but we're getting to a point where there's almost no excuse. And I do believe that even though podcast it's almost getting less competitive because people are like the number of podcasts is slowly decreasing right now because the world is opening back up and people are like, I'm not going to do that anymore. So
yeah,
it's like so low competition compared to like YouTube or something. And it's like, you don't have to do video. You could just talk into a mic. So it's a really cool, I really, again, comparing it to music, I really love podcasting because it's like at some point in time before there was TV, people gathered around a radio and some guy told a story. Mm-hmm. And it was like, it's just such a powerful thing. Like you have a voice, hopefully you have a voice, right? But there's people that went to jail for having like pirate radio stations. And now for $0, you can have your own basically radio station that can hit anybody's phone in the entire world.
Damn, that's cool.
It's access. It's amazing.
That is cool. I think I need to remember that on some days when I, with a podcast like mine where, the podcasts so far that do really, really, really well are the ones that, are from my, tour world. My friends that are in bands like Kane Hill of Mice and Men, Miss May I, the list goes on. Those go really well because my main following on Instagram and Twitter is from the fans that I grew from, the 10, 11 years of doing that.
Sure.
So when I do an episode on fitness, no one gives a fuck. So, or if I do just like my fun little random ones, like the numbers will be very low. But I think I need to start thinking of like just the fact that I'm able to do this and not get thrown in jail. Like,
yeah, it's definitely food for thought. And here's the other thing. Like, I'm pretty big on not thinking that what you make is worth the number in the analytics. And what I mean by this is like, you could post an episode on fitness, and let's say it gets 25 downloads. I'm just using an example because I have no idea what you're pulling. It gets 25 downloads, and you're like, oh, like this episode's a failure. But it's always there, and you never know when that new person's going to find you. So how could you measure something that never gets done being measured? You know what I mean?
It's true, yeah.
So I don't even look anymore. Like, yes, every once in a while I'll glance at like some of the analytics just to make sure that like it's not zero. But
yeah,
I'm never going to let an analytics dashboard tell me that what I made is worth something. I'm going to go, and this is just my philosophy in everything I do in life, is I'm going to make cool shit. And I'm going to make something that I like. And if I do that enough, the right person will find it and they'll probably like it too. Yeah. And that frees me. Like I'm out of jail. I'm like, I don't have anybody to I don't have anybody to keep happy. I don't have any to prove except for myself. And I think too many people get into this and they're like, well, who's going to listen to me? And then they start their podcast and they're like, or I'm afraid of what people will think. Let's use that example. Then they start their podcast and they don't get as many downloads as they think they should. And it's like, well, like you were afraid of what people thought a minute ago. Now you want more people to think about you. Like we get too absorbed in the external instead of just like, I'm going to make a cool podcast that I really like and fuck everybody. Like I want to, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm going to document this and it's going to live in a library. And if the right person finds it at the right time, then I win. Right. So that's sort of my philosophical take on podcasting at the moment.
I dig it because one of the things I wanted to ask you, and I think in a way you answered it with like not really even giving any like true advice on what I'm going to ask, is because I mean, we talked about it a little bit over text like a few days ago where, you know, like my podcast is literally all over the place, you know, from, you know, people in the music industry to a mortician to myself to, you know, just random people, you know, it's all over the place. And, you know, obviously trying to hit a niche or niche, whatever you want to, I don't know, you know, it's harder, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then obviously that affects my, you know, numbers when you want to look at it, yada, yada, yada. But basically what you were just saying, hey, I'm creating what I like to create. Fuck you if you don't like it. Listen to something else or find something on my podcast you want to listen to. You know?
Exactly.
And by the way, if you're listening, I don't mean fuck you. I love you. Thank you for being here and listening. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm doing what I like to do. This is so fun. I mean, I'm growing as a person. For one, I'm talking to someone else on a form that no one really does anymore. As far as like talking on the phone, you know, like not everyone has a podcast. No one likes to be on their phone. They like to text, all these things. So I don't know. That answered it for me.
So check this out, Danny. So I'm going to give you another example because if your audience loves music, let's use this example. You have this band and they're band X. We don't even need to like say what the band is. And they make music, they start to blow up, and then they get the big record deal, right? And then what happens? All these people get involved and there's money thrown at them and they got to do this and they got to sell this many records. What happens? The music starts to suck because when they were doing it before, they were just doing something that they loved and they were just making shit that they thought was cool. There was no external factor that changed the music, producers or royalties or any of that shit. They were just like making something cool, or like any artist, right? Like, you think Picasso gave a fuck? Like, he was like, no, you like my super detailed paintings? No, I'm going to go cubist. I'm going to go abstract. Just like, he didn't care. It was like, art. Exactly.
It's all
and
art.
So if you can think about like, you know, yes, it's easier to grow an audience when you have like something more specific, but on the other hand, it's also nice to have a variety of topics and guests. And so it just takes, sometimes it takes a little longer to grow. And really the only reason to like look at analytics is if you want to brag about it, if you want to get advertising, and you want to slap an ad on your podcast, which, you know, people look at it both ways. Again, I think of this as an art form. Would you like shit your pants if you were listening to the Beatles and then an ad for fucking Casper mattress came in? You'd be like, what is this shit?
I think that company would make a lot of money. No, just kidding.
Oh yeah, they would make a lot of money. Yeah. It depends how broke the Beatles are before they start doing that.
Yeah, right.
So if you can just remember that, like, all the good stuff always comes before the money gets involved, the fame, you know, all that bullshit, all the good stuff, like all the best records are like the indie band who is just doing it on their own. And if you could take that into your mind while you're making your thing, whatever it is, if it's a podcast, if it's music, if it's art, if it's writing your book, like, the beauty is internal. It is not external. The problems come, you know, whoever said mo money, more problems. I just screwed that up. Mo money, mo problems, excuse me. They were right, because it's like the more you get, the more hassle you get. So enjoy being free. That's why I won't ever have an ad on my podcast, because I don't want someone telling me what to say, what to do. I do what I want to do, you know? And the money wouldn't be worth it to me to be like a shill. Now, if you can make money on your podcast that way, that's cool too. I'd much rather promote things that I actually love and use organically and not feel like I mean, because if you just want to make money in a podcast, then just do whatever's trending. Like,
yeah, of course. Yeah, talk about sex or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there's no point in actually like trying to do something. You just do whatever the thing is people want to hear. So, diatribe over.
All right. Before, because I want to be respectful of your night, and also I definitely have to go to the bathroom soon. There's one. So honestly, sometimes you just gotta. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're a little bit over an hour. Like, bathroom's got to happen soon.
Yeah.
And
honesty is the best policy here.
Of course. There was something that, I mean, especially with music, it's kind of coming from music, but recently I saw that Apple Music started doing things with these albums, like, was it lossless audio, Atmos, like all these things. Was it 5.1? You know, spatial audio. I was thinking, isn't there like some sort of cool, I don't know, editing way that like certain podcast episodes could be in like this spatial 3D space?
Yeah. Yeah. So you can download the 5.1 plugin and create 5.1 podcasts. And I think the reason Apple's doing that is, do you have AirPods by chance?
Yes. It's not the newest ones, but I don't know if that makes a difference, but I have like...
I'm not sure, but the ones I have, like if you watch a video on your phone or your iPad and you turn your head, it literally like spatially turns. Wow. Like if you turn your head away from the screen, it gets like quieter. Like they're doing something there. So they're probably investing in the immersive experience. And, you know, at some point there will be an iPad little circle you put on your desk and a hologram will pop out and you'll just watch stuff in 3D. So there, you know, I'm sure the roadmap for Apple is very advanced, but, yeah, I mean, I've seen people pan things like, you know, if you don't know what panning is, it's like you could turn things to the left or to the right. So I've seen people pan 4 people in 4 different sections. So when they're talking, it kind of comes in a different space.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's cool, but sometimes it's distracting.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, okay, wait, where's this guy? You know, where did he come from? But yeah, I mean, I think podcasting is... I was just at Podcast Movement, and there was all this talk about podcasting 2.0 and the future of podcasting. And I kind of asked myself, like, does this need to be innovated?
Not really.
Right?
I mean, it's not. I mean, the quality and ideas and whatnot will forever, you know, change and get better. But it's like, it is what it is. Like, it's going to stay the same. I mean, you talked about pirate radio. What's different between then and now? Well, obviously you don't get thrown in jail, but
yes,
quality, yeah.
I actually, someone should change podcasting to be called pirate radio. It'd be so much cooler. Like, what do you do for a living? Oh, I do pirate radio.
Pirate radio.
You know, now when you say you're a podcaster, everyone's just like, oh.
Like, yeah, of course you are. Yeah.
So it's like, you're in a band? Oh, yeah. Oh.
There's so many, especially with the pandemic. I was like, I don't know when I started. I have to look it up. But like, I started a little bit, a few months before the pandemic. And then like, I saw a bunch of friends and, start podcasts. And I was like, one of them is actually still one of them is still going, which I'm stoked. I've had him on a few times, been on his once. And, there's just like a surplus of people doing podcasts, which is great. But then it just died off. I'm like, I don't know.
It's because it's actually way more work than people just think like, oh, cool, I'll just put up some mics and shoot the shit with my friends. And they don't realize like, oh, you got to write show notes and oh, you got to do this and that and you got to edit it. And it's like, wait, I have to do all that just to have a podcast. So it becomes, there's no easy button. There's no hack. I think what's wrong with everybody right now, if I was going to tell you what I think what's wrong with the world is, everyone's looking for the shortcut. They're looking how they can make 6 figures in 10 minutes and 6-pack abs in 4 seconds. And no one's willing to do any work. It's like, everyone looks at Rogan and they're like, oh, he got $110 million for smoking weed and talking to his friends.
Took him like 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was also famous for like 4 things.
Yeah.
If you're famous for 4 things and it takes you 10 years, like if you're not famous for anything, are you willing to do this long term without being paid, right? And most people are not because the other thing I think is they complicate it. Like, tell good stories, have good conversations, stop worrying about all this other tertiary bullshit, and just keep doing it like as much as you can. And that's really like the hard thing about podcasting is that in theory, it never ends. Like you're just supposed to keep going, and but I don't think it needs to be innovated. Going back to the, Mark Cuban was at the podcast movement. He's like, this is podcasting 2.0. And I'm thinking like, dude, you're an investor. You don't give 2 shits about podcasting. You just want your new app that you invested in to do well. And that's it. And how many investments does that guy have? 1 billion? 1,000? 100,000? Like, and so people are falling over their dicks chasing this guy around thinking like, he's their ticket out. I just got to get his attention. And I'm like, he does not care about you. I don't know why you think he's going to invest in your podcast. You're crazy. So
yeah, unless you're Joe Rogan or, Call Her Daddy, like you're not doing shit with the cube.
Yeah, exactly. The cube. Yeah.
The cube. I don't know. That's off the top.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So does it need to be innovated? Probably not. I'm sure that there will be some small innovations. Hopefully, like discoverability. I think is really hard with RSS feeds for people to get discovered. I think someone needs to create something that lets podcasters get found. But, try finding anything on the internet now. It's like, there's 1 billion movies, TV shows, services, websites, blogs, YouTube channels, podcasts, this, that, and the other thing. I mean, there's a lot out there to consume, and there's not enough time for one person to consume it all.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, I think this is a good spot to pit.
Yeah, dude, thank you so much for having me. I
can't talk.
I wanted to tell you that the reason I found you, I think you did an episode about pod decks, and so I was like, I saw the art and I was like, this looks cool. And so I just threw it on. And I think I was at that point, I was packing shipments or something. Like I like to listen to stuff while I do other stuff. And then I was like listening to it, and you had like 2 other dudes on with you. And I'm like, this is pretty cool. Like, there's not a lot of cool, like couple dudes talking shows, but you were doing some questions and I liked the answers. I think one of the questions was like, what would you do if you were the opposite gender? For a day. I think
this was with my 2 brothers, and I'm sure there was alcohol involved.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was quality. Yeah. I was like, this is really good. And it like made me really happy because I was like, this is what these are for. That's what pod decks are for, right? And so and then I just was like, oh, I'm gonna subscribe to this. And it's just always funny to me, like, you become a fan of something, and then like just being on the podcast is like, it's cool. It's weird. It's like, oh,
it's fun.
It's like,
it's great.
I started listening to this podcast, and now like I'm going to be one of your least downloaded episodes.
Oh, no way. I'm gonna hit that hit that Facebook group hard.
Yeah, man.
No, but I appreciate that. I mean, I'm stoked to have you on. I mean, I moved here like to Idaho from California a few months ago, and right before that, that's when we were talking, do some work on the side with you with your, clients and stuff like that. And I mean, it all happened so quick, and now you're on the podcast, and I don't know, it's awesome. And I thank you for coming on, and well, it's
my pleasure,
not
man.
the last time. So I'll tell you that.
Yeah, we had to build those forts, and once you get the video, we'll do the video fort podcast.
Yes, we will.
Podcast.